Hey guys, White Moose out here for White Moose Bushcraft, and this weekend I am in the Dolly Sods Wilderness in West Virginia. We're a little bit outside the city of Elkins. It's about the closest big city to us, and I'm out here for a few days of backpacking with my dad. I'm going to be taking you guys along throughout the next few days, showing you guys our campsites, kind of how I do things, how I've got my tarp shelter set up, and hopefully some bits of the trail and some of the stuff that we get to experience I'll be able to bring home and share with you guys. So stay tuned for the rest of the videos and the pictures that follow, and hopefully we'll all have a good, safe time. We'll talk to you later. We are at our first little stream crossing, and this is a little stream called Alder Run. It bisects the Blackbird Knob Trail, and we need to get across it real quick to continue on our way. It's not too deep, but as you can see, the water is really clear, the nice amber color to it. This water tastes great, by the way. It's really refreshing. So I guess I'll go ahead and take you with me, and we'll see if we can get some interesting shots from the middle of the stream. If I don't get my feet soaking wet. There we go. See Dad up there, he crossed a little ways upstream up next to a campsite, said it looked like it'd be a little easier, so. And we're across. We're coming up on our second stream crossing here, and this will be the actual crossing of Red Creek. It's a little bit bigger than Alder Run was, and you can see off to the right here an arm of it. There's a campsite across the way there on that little island. And we're going to come down here a little farther to where we're actually going to get across and head up the trail a little farther to Blackbird Knob. That'll probably be the next check-in for us. Had to sit and kind of wait out a rain squall for a few minutes. It came through and gave us a nice soaking, but we managed to take cover under a couple friendly hemlocks and stayed pretty dry overall. So this spot here, I think used to be one of the spots where you'd go down, but as you can see, that's a straight drop, about 10 feet. The first time I was here at Dolly Sods, that's where we went down and crossed, but it's since eroded away to the point where you can't really navigate it. So we're going to come back over here a ways, and we're going to navigate our way down that very carefully and head down to the current crossing. Oh, squishy foot! Oh. All right, we made it up to Blackbird Knob. This area looks significantly different from the last time I was up here. It's over to our right. All these trees didn't used to be here. They've grown up and blocked the view since I started coming up here. And again, we came up on the Blackbird Knob Trail, and over here is the trail sign indicating the intersection of Blackbird Knob Trail and the Upper Red Creek Trail, which my wife Kelsey will remember from our trip back in April, where the Upper Red Creek Trail terminates at the intersection with Dobbin Grade. So we're going to head over in a general that way direction and check out our old campsite to see if it's still valid. We are currently on our way down to an area called the Forks on the Red Creek Trail. We've split off a Blackbird Knob Trail, and this was a really neat stretch of trail, kind of like a tunnel. We're kind of at a tricky situation trying to balance speed and safety because there's a storm somewhere close by that we're not really wanting to get mixed up with. But at the same time, this trail is wet and completely submerged in a lot of places with a lot of rocks and roots, so we don't want to rush. So we will check back in with you down at the forks. We are down at the forks. We've done some scouting around, and I think we've figured out where we're going to camp for the night. I just wanted to show you guys the stream here, kind of give you a better idea as to why it's called the Forks, if I don't ruin your view. But we've got one pretty fantastic waterfall there, and another one comes in from the left, and I'll go back up so you can get a better view of that. But there's nothing like camping and sleeping by running water. Said I'll run back up here real quick and walk over and get you a better view of this stream. So this is what we're going to be sleeping by tonight. It's what we're going to be listening to all night long. It's going to be a good night. I got my tarp set up, and it is the most jankety, hideous thing I've ever had to sleep under before. But, you know, that's in part my fault for getting cocky and forgetting to pack things that I should have packed. Note to self and anybody watching, when you go camping and you take a tarp, and the tarp is going to be your main shelter, ground cloth. If I had packed a ground cloth, I'd have thrown up a diamond real fast and been snug and cozy with plenty of room to sit up. Did not pack a ground cloth. Don't know why. Really regretting it right now. Also, I am in sandy soil. And basically, again, for the ground cloth, I have limited myself to this type of tarp shelter because it's the only one that provides me any kind of a ground cloth. So, you know, this sandy soil does not hold my stakes very well at all, and there are a ton of rocks. So making my own wooden stakes and shoving them into the ground is probably not going to work out the best. And as you can probably hear and see, it's currently raining on us. So Dad's socked into his tent, and I am in Frankentarp here, and we are, for the time being, pinned down. Now, it's not always like this here at Dolly Sods. I've been here, it's been perfectly dry, it's been really nice, weather's been wonderful. Today, it's just in a mood. So, yeah, lesson number one, take a ground cloth. It might make a little extra bulk in your pack, it's going to be a little extra weight, but it's going to be worth its weight in gold if you get yourself into a situation like this. So it's going to be a fun and interesting night if it keeps this up. But you know, you live and learn, and like I said earlier to Dad, sometimes you got to live sometimes you got to live uncomfortably. So we'll keep you updated and let you know what's going on. But yeah, Frankentarp it is for tonight because I underestimated the unpredictability of nature, which is a huge no-no for someone like me. And I left home completely unprepared for the unexpected. So learn from my mistakes before you find yourself in a similar situation, because hey, it's me again already. The rain has started to pick up, and I've discovered a wonderful flaw in Frankentarp. I got water coming down this edge, and it drips off right where it's supposed to, but it drips off right onto my ground cloth, and I end up with this. Oh crap. Since I don't have a gutter or a bail, or yeah, this is just not gonna work, guys.
Where's your pack?
It's under the tarp part that's not getting a lot of water on it.
Alright. Get my boots off.
Yeah. Boy, I messed up big on this one, guys. Alright. Frankentarp has failed, and failed miserably. It was wonderful. So now we're both here in Dad's two-man tent. All 6'2", 262 pounds of me and Dad in a two-man tent. It's hot, it's muggy, it's stuffy. My glasses are fogged and I can't see.
You want to hear something funny? The end we're supposed to have our heads at is at the lowest.
And now the head end of the tent is downhill.
Because Put the face out this way so we can talk to each other.
So guys, I messed up. And
I'm ready to go home.
yeah. It's still raining. We can't leave the tent. It's hot. It's stuffy again. My glasses are useless because it's like looking through smoke.
Amazon.
Jeez. I feel like I'm in Cambodia right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, lessons learned. Location, location, location for setting up a tarp shelter. I should have known better than to try my skinny little stakes in sandy soil. It didn't work out at all. Lesson number 2, ground cloth. For the love of God, ground cloth. Because if I had a ground cloth, I could have just thrown up a diamond, like I said earlier, and been comfy cozy and been just fine. I rushed this one. I tried to... I don't know what the heck I was thinking. I wasn't. But like I said earlier, without that ground cloth, I limited myself to one specific type of tarp shelter, and it failed horribly because I couldn't even get it set up right where I'm at. So, better luck hopefully tomorrow night if we make it that far. I'm going to stick out as long as I can. I don't know about Dad. He's got his pepperoni roll, so for the moment he's good. If you guys ever come to West Virginia, get the pepperoni rolls. Willtown, Harmon, go up to Harmon, go to the little gas station, or not, it's not a gas station, I'm sorry, little convenience store, general store, get the pepperoni rolls. They're life-changing. So enough ADD, I'll check in later. Hopefully it quits raining or something. Farewell. Well, there it is. Stupid Franken tent. We're calling it Maurice. I don't think I have to say anything. Okay. Alright guys, for the first time in backpacking history that I can remember, we have chosen to abandon ship and retreat to high ground. We are going to abandon our site here at the Forks and try to get up the hill to Blackbird Knob and see if we can sock in there, and if not, we're going to have to back completely out of the mountains for the night and try again tomorrow. So, I'll keep you updated and see what happens. Alright, since we abandoned ship, we also discarded the plan of camping on Blackbird Knob for the reason that if it continues to rain, Red Creek might be too high and ferocious for us to really want to try to cross in the morning again if we need to get out of here. So we're back at our first crossing, and we're going to go back to some campsites that Dad and I really enjoy, and this time I'm going to take you along as I try not to die crossing the creek. Are you doing okay? Yeah, it's definitely up a bit. Not a lot, but it's up. Oh crap. Okay, we're good. Had a rock roll on me. Alright. We made it across. Well, Dad's almost across, so I'm gonna go make sure he doesn't need help. We've got camp set up now. We're down at the sites that I mentioned earlier that Dad and I are kind of partial to. And this time, the tarp looks like it should. I was able to get it set up correctly. And underneath there is where I'm going to be sleeping in that little cubby. I've got my pad inflating now and my sleeping bag lofting. Dad's got his rig set up over there. It's been a really interesting trip so far. Both of us are soaked to the bone, almost. There's really not much that we have here that isn't wet. And we're both just kind of tired of water for the time being. So it's going to be an interesting night, and we'll see what tomorrow brings. And hopefully tomorrow will bring sunshine and better weather. But we'll check in with you then.
Well, good morning on day 2. I actually managed to sleep a lot better last night than I thought I was going to, especially since I had the tarp set up correctly. Go ahead and show you my view this morning. This is what I can see from inside my wonderful tarp. It's a nice, clear morning from what I can tell so far without being outside. It's not currently raining, but it's still kind of wet. The water's still going really good down the stream, so I'm going to get myself pulled together here and out of the tarp, and we'll see what we're going to get into today. All right, morning has dawned. I've managed to get myself out of the tarp. I'll show you guys real quick a walkabout of the campsite, since you couldn't really see it that well last night in the dark. But we've got Dad's little two-man tent set up there, Dad preparing breakfast there, and then you can see my tarp off there in the background. Nice open flat spot here in the trees right next to Red Creek and that little waterfall back there. It's a really neat campsite. Alright, I am on a search for fatwood. Those of you that have taken my classes or spoken to me about the topic know what fatwood is. For those of you that may not, it's pine wood that has a very high amount of the pine sap and resin in it. And that resin is great at taking and extending a flame. So even in a situation where I am right now, where everything's soaking wet, if I can get a good source of fatwood, I can probably get a decent fire going. The challenge is this area has been picked pretty well clean of any available firewood, especially anything low to the ground. And as you guys can see, it's almost like a lumber camp back here now. A lot of people have been cutting trees down for fire and stuff like that, so my resources are kind of limited. I'm going to have to wander quite a ways to find what I need, but we'll see what happens and we'll go from there. Okay, I may not have to wander as far as I initially thought, because this tree here happens to be dead, and down here at the bottom was this glorious find. This is just swimming in sap and resin. You can see a little bit of it on my thumb, and I can tell it's sap and not water, because once it dries a little bit, it's sticky on my fingers. So that's gonna have quite a bit of material that will work for me. Now here's the new challenge. In an attempt to save weight this time, and kind of as an experiment just to see how it goes, I did not bring a chopping tool like my hatchet or my big camp knife. So I've got to figure out how to get some of this out of here with just a little pocket knife, or maybe even my little Mora. So I'm going to dig into this, see what I can pull out of it, and I'll bring you guys back shortly to see what we've got. Okay, so one of our Facebook followers, Katie, was interested in knowing how to get a fire started when it's been raining for several days, or in her words, raining a lot. Well, fortunately for her, since West Virginia looks more like the Pacific Northwest this weekend, it's been raining a lot. And even though I am not in need of a fire at this point in time, I thought it would be a good opportunity to take that challenge and see if I could get a fire started. Because even though I don't need one right now, it'd be kind of nice to have one to help dry some stuff out, and a fire at camp is just a nice thing to have. So scattered all over the ground here, you guys can see, there's no shortage of kindling and small things to get a fire going. The challenge though, since it's been raining so much, is that all of this is soaking wet, so I'm not going to be able to get a fire going very easily with it. So I have some other materials here that I've managed to scavenge. I've got a pile of birch bark that I harvested yesterday while we were hiking. I've got some shavings that I've processed down from that piece of pine I showed you earlier that had a lot of resin flowing out of that wound. I've got some bigger chunks of that pine over here, and I've got some small kindling here that I pulled out of the fire pit already. It's got a little bit of char to it. I'm going to be using my lighter, and since I am not completely savvy at getting a fire starting with soaking wet materials, I'm not going to limit myself to the 5-second challenge this time, but I'm going to try to get a little fire lay built here on this rock and see if I can get a fire going decently. This is going to be fun with one hand while I'm holding my phone, and if I get the shot out of frame or anything like that, I'm sorry. But I'm going to take those shavings that have a lot of resin in them from that pine wound, and I'm going to put them on top of my birch bark, and I'm going to see if I can get all that to light first. Oops, dropped my lighter.
I think that pine that I pulled some chips and shavings off of from that wound area, I think that tree was a little greener than I initially thought it was. So I don't know if this, I don't know if this pine is going to take the way I hoped it would. Let's see if I can just get some of this resin to light here. You can see the resin on this chip is burning. Focus, thank you. But as soon as the resin in that particular area is burned up, the chip itself is too green to burn. So I don't know how much luck we're going to have getting this fire started here. I need a GoPro. If anybody's interested in supporting the business, we would really benefit from a GoPro camera. Just throwing that out there. Maybe seriously, maybe not seriously. I'll leave that up to you guys. Alright, I'm going to do some adjustments and I'm going to return to my search for good fat wood or good dead resinous pine and try again here in a minute. So maybe 2 seconds after saying that I was going to go look for more and new resources, I have no idea if that was in frame or not. I hope it was. But just a couple seconds after me saying I was going to go look for a better source of fat wood, those chips that I had shaved down of that resinous pine took. So I decided to sit here and wait for a couple seconds, and it's sort of limping along as a fire. So I'm going to kind of hang out for a little bit and see if I can't coax it to life. There's a decent amount of heat and some of those twigs have started to catch, so I'm going to see what I can do to keep it alive here. So, I found this handy dandy branch and broke it off the tree. This branch is in fact dead. And the outside of it is wet, because again, it's been raining for several days. This was the bottom of the branch facing the ground. It's still kind of dry. And if you take a knife or a hatchet or some tool and you focus please. There, wow, okay. Never mind. But if you peel back the bark and the first few layers of wood, what you find inside is fairly dry. So I'm going to keep shaving down into here a little bit, and I'm going to see if I can't find something that I can make some usable shavings out of. So we'll see where we end up with this now. Alright, I've taken that stick that I had and I've shaved it down to get a decent pile of really thin shavings. I've got some that are a little bit thicker here. I also remembered that in my cook set I have some of this, which is a part of a fire starter disc that I picked up at Walmart. I assume it's sawdust and wax from the looks and the feel of it, but I'm not 100% sure. So I broke off and crumbled a little piece of that, and I stuck it down here in my little nest of birch bark. And there's probably going to be someone out there that says that I'm cheating using a commercial fire starter, and my counter argument to that would be that I just came in somewhat prepared for starting a fire if I needed to. Now granted, I didn't come in completely prepared to start a fire in soaking wet forest, but I had that fire starter with me in the event that I wanted to start a fire. It would make it easier should I not be able to find my materials. So that's what I say to someone who thinks that I might be cheating using the commercial version of a fire starter, since I was completely and totally unable to find fat wood of usable quality here. I'm just going to let that go. So I'm going to very carefully add my shavings in here. I don't want to smother my fire right off the bat. Shavings look like they're taking pretty well. Okay, I went ahead and added my entire pile of shavings that I had, plus the few that were a little thicker. I'm going to start adding these little charred bits of twig that I've been trying to catch. And with each attempt, oops, they get a little drier. So hopefully here, this time, they will take. Just going to try to delicately pile those on there. No specific order, because I want maximum amount of airflow possible to be able to get through this fire. So I've got some high hopes for this one, so I'm going to do what I can here to tend this and get it to grow a little bit, and I'll bring you guys back here in a few seconds. Alright, I know somewhere out there, eventually this video is going to get seen by some guy who's like a Jedi master at lighting fires in all types of weather, and he's going to just cringe at me trying to get this fire going substantially in what he would consider to be mild dampness. But like I said, I've never gotten a fire going with saturated materials after heavy rainfall before, so this is a first for me. And you know, if I don't get it, I learn something from it, and I do better next time. So we'll keep you updated on the status of our experimental fire here and see what happens. After much toil, I finally managed to get a tiny bed of coals situated. Obviously, I've moved where my fire was to a little bit more protected area. And I'm just letting the heat from that little bed of coals seep up through my kindling to try to dry it out enough to where it'll combust. I'm not really messing with it a whole lot. I'm not blowing on it to try to push more air through it. I'm really not doing a lot to readjust the pile. I'm just kind of letting it do what it'll do and see what happens. And so far, it's kept up this little semi-burn smolder thing for quite a while, so I'm kind of hopeful that this time I'll actually get a manageable fire out of it.
A little higher.
Well, I've been at this for a long time now, trying to get a sustainable fire going, and this is as close as I've managed to come. I know there's a little flame there, but it's a very fragile flame, and I honestly wouldn't call this a sustainable fire. There is a decent little bed of coals in there, but I don't feel it's enough with how wet the kindling and all the fuel around is to get anything bigger than this going. So I'm going to throw in the towel on this one and mark it up to unpreparedness. I came in prepared to start fires, but I did not come in prepared to start fires in soaking wet conditions. So we're going to call it quits on this one, and we're going to try again at another point in the near future and see if we have better success with a little bit better preparation. Alright, so we were moving up to set up camp at Alder Run. It was that first stream that we crossed yesterday, and we got up here alright. We were scouting out, we found where we wanted to set up our camp, and then we got our packs over here, and as soon as we started to cross Alder Run to come over over and set up camp, it started to rain again, as you can probably hear. So instead of in Dad's tent this time, we are hunkered under my tarp, which I was able to quick deploy because for some odd reason this morning I decided to pack it on top of my pack instead of underneath everything inside of it. So I was able to just throw the hood open on my pack and get my tarp out real fast. So yeah, we're hanging out here under a real quick makeshift hobo shelter and waiting to see what the rain does. And we're trying to determine, you know, do we want to stick it out tonight or do we want to hike out and figure out something else to do for the rest of our time here. So whatever develops from here on out should be pretty interesting. So we'll keep you updated. I just thought of doing this. I haven't thought of it yet, and I don't know why, because I've got both birch bark and a lot of water. But birch bark apparently burns when it's soaking wet, and I have never tried this myself, so I'm just curious to see it work. So we're going to see if we can get it lit here.
And it may not even be this type of birch. There are different types of birch trees. Oh, the water's so cold. So this may not be the right kind of birch tree. What? Well, we got a little bit going there for a bit.
Oh, sorry. I took it out of frame, didn't I?
Well, I guess this isn't the right type of birch tree because that's not working for me. So I'll have to do a little bit of research into that and try again sometime. We're done. We decided, with the way the weather was looking and the rain that was coming in, we decided that we were going to go ahead and cut our losses. And we're going to go down and stay at a quaint little location called the Alpine, is it Motel or Lodge?
Alpine, well, both.
Either way, Alpine Lodge, Alpine Motel, whichever way. It's an awesome place. If you guys are ever in the Elkins Harmon area and you need a place to stay, I would very highly recommend it. But we got rained on pretty hard coming out, and there's a lot more dark clouds out here, and there's more rain coming in, so we're gonna go ahead and call it for this trip instead of staying and pushing our luck and being completely wet and miserable the whole time. So once we get to the lodge, I'll give you another update from there, and we'll see what happens next.
I need a table, grate, and a high chair.
Morning, guys. Final update for this trip. We just finished up breakfast here at the Alpine Lodge, and we're getting ready to get on the red and head home. The interior of the car smells of foot, but we're dry, we're warm. It's a bright sunny morning down where we're at now, and we're kind of ready to be home. We're a little beat up and we feel a little rugged from this trip. Learned a few valuable lessons. Bring a ground cloth. Make sure you've got proper rain gear. I'm gonna look into getting an umbrella, and I think Dad is as well. And that's something we learned from Ray Jardine's book about lightweight backpacking. And after experiencing what we went through this time, we both think an umbrella would be a really awesome thing to have. So stay tuned for updates with umbrella backpacking adventures. But there's a whole list of gear and equipment that we've both come up with that we need to look into having with us the next time and acquiring that we may not have right now. So it was kind of a hard trip. It was an interesting trip, but it was a trip that we both learned a lot from. So I'd say it was worth the experience. So we're gonna sign off for this one, and we'll see you guys next time.